I thought it might be fun for us to talk a little bit about the Michael Jordan docuseries that the world's talking about. Have you been keeping up with that?
I've seen it.
Does it speak to you at all?
Um, I mean, Jordan himself of what he achieved and those kind of things, I think is very highly impressive. And whenever you see that kind of mania, that kind of um, obsession, to become the best in the world, there's always great things that come from that. And obviously, Michael's done some really inspirational things.
What when you're watching it, and I guess it's been eight episodes now. Like, what do you look for in something like that? I mean, obviously, everybody has an idea of the greatness that this guy has, but are you paying attention to certain things about maybe the manner in which he does what he does?
You know, it's a good question because if you look at the exposition of people who have done great things in their life, it's just like anywhere else. It's very difficult to find truth, and the reason for that is there really is no market for truth in that regard. Everyone's interested in sensationalism, and so unfortunately, humans being humans, they tend to draw out the worst in people, and so as a result, all whenever you have books written or media done or all these things, it really never is about the meaty things. It's always about the sensationalism and the lowest common denominator type of stuff. What is what would be really intriguing is if people went into if documentaries and books about people really went into not how many records and how many wins. I mean, everyone knows that. You can Google that and find that out in 5 minutes. There's no reason to do a documentary about that. I mean, it really is about um, the genesis of the obsession, the nature of the training, the what is it that drives a particular human being from a very, very honest perspective, as opposed to trying to give a lesson or trying to sensationalize and trying to put on a pedestal and trying to do all of these things just to sell newspapers, so to speak. And unfortunately, that really doesn't exist in today's world, and that's because the both the supply and the demand are chasing each other. In other words, the audience craves one type of sensationalism, and then the media is a slave to that in order to sell more papers. And so no one's really interested in the things that could really benefit human beings, as to what the truth actually was. Right? No one tells you the truth. Right? They always tell you the sensationalized version so that it becomes more dramatic and so that more people will buy the paper.
Yeah, the media is awful.
But I can't blame the media. The media doesn't provide what human beings don't want. So there's no way that I'll blame the media for that. Um, the 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 one the one who is willing to tell the truth is the one who's willing to go out of business, and that actually is worth watching. And um, so I can actually come along with the idea of media responsibility, but it really isn't responsibility. But let's say that you had a media, you can't say outlet because anything more than one person, there's no truth. I mean, groups are nonsense. So let's say that you had a rare individual who was interested, who was obsessed with getting the truth out, not sensationalism, but the actual truth about a particular figure or an event or whatever it is, knowing that he may not sell a lot of newspapers and hot dogs. And that wasn't his driving force. That would actually be very nourishing to human beings because, number one, finally we have a truth, right? Number two, we have someone who wants to try to sell us something on an idea. Not, there's nothing wrong with selling something. In fact, it's worth 10 times more if it's truthful. Um, and if that happened, then you would actually create an audience who was enamored by that, and you would actually teach people in a way to seek more of the truth as opposed to more sensationalism.
Well, obviously, I can't help but think about you when I watch it, just knowing how you think and knowing the conversations that we've had. And obviously, Kapil, no one would argue that Michael has an incredibly rare DNA. But as everybody's talking, I'm thinking about how you might be able to look at it from no, his greatness is his greatness. But I'm curious as to what someone like him is able to access to achieve that level of greatness that maybe the rest of us aren't willing to go there, or perhaps it seems elusive to us.
Nothing is really elusive. The only elusive implies that you really want it and that you can't get it. And that's just not true. No one really wants it, and no one should want it. And once again, the audience that's listening to this shouldn't be listening. It's not for them, right? I have nothing to say to them, right? I'm not. Once again, we go through this theme. I don't want to give any lessons, right? I don't want any take-home messages that they should do, because the fact of the matter is rare people are rare, and to try to be like them is a waste of time. Emulation is a waste of time. If someone is really interested in something, they will find themselves doing it. They don't need a podcast to motivate them. And if they do, then that'll be gone. That motivation will be gone by 5 p.m.
Well, it's a little bit after 5, so hopefully it hasn't gone yet.
Well, it'll be 5 tomorrow, so it doesn't matter.
It will be 5 tomorrow.
Yeah. So, but it really isn't about lessons. It's if if something that if it's something that speaks to you, it speaks to you. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But there's no you should do this.
So here's something that somebody once wanted me to ask you. If life has granted you a beautiful gift or talent, what is your obligation to use it?
Nothing. No one has any obligation, responsibility.
I knew you were going to say that about that word.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. The question makes me angry. There's no obligation.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. You've been doing a lot of writing, and you've been doing a lot of podcasts that really do speak directly to the truth. And one of the areas that you talk about is confidence. And you take a look at the world today, and there's a lot of people in the world who've been impacted. Their confidence has been shaken over the past few months. What has to happen for someone who's had these confidence shaken, or who's had these bad defeats in life? What do they have to go through to be able to restore that?
Well, everyone views things through the events of the world. No, I don't. Once again, there's nothing they can do to get the confidence. There's nothing they can do. Nothing. There's nothing they can do to get what Michael achieved. Nothing. There's nothing they can do. And the reason there's nothing they can do is because nothing can be sprinkled upon anybody. So once again, you did it, and that's why I asked you if you heard me. You tend, once again, we're talking openly, Mo. I'm not bashing you.
I appreciate it.
Okay. So we're talking openly, and you tend to ask questions, and then I answer the question, then you go on to the next question. And it's almost like you're in the middle of the next question before you even heard the response to the first one. And it isn't that my words are so important that you need to listen to them, but when you ask the next question, it's asked as if you never heard the response to the first one, and therefore the framework hasn't changed. You're still asking to help people. I don't want you to get better, and I don't even want you to stop. All I'm saying is I'm not interested. I'm not interested in helping anyone.
So how do you look at confidence? What does that even mean to you?
I don't think it's about where to get confidence from. I think it's about where one's desire, what direction one's desire is in, and if it even exists. Not that it should.
So at a point when you're at the lowest point in your life.
Yeah, you're at the lowest point of your life always. You're not in your lowest point of your life just because of Corona. You're always at the lowest point of your life. It's just a detail. You're always suffering. Show me a human being who wasn't suffering. It's just more details of suffering. So this pick me up, this boost thing, this liven my mood. It's an insult. It's a waste.
I agree. Yeah, and
No, I don't think
I'm
I don't
tired
think
of
you
it
do
too.
agree though.
I'm
I
tired
don't
of it
think
too.
if you were
Believe me.
tired of it, I mean, if you were tired of it, then I would say that you wouldn't have asked me the question. If you were really tired of it, you wouldn't have asked me for the pick me up.
Well, it's not a pick me up.
It is.
The
It is. If
idea.
someone's at the lowest point in their life, what can I say that will give them more confidence? Who cares? Whatever someone needs in the lowest point, and then they need it only then whenever the so-called economy comes back and everything, they'll be back to where their default state. Everyone's always falling. The people who really get somewhere are the ones who are trying to get there even when they're not falling. Not when they have fallen, then they look up to for a helping hand.
But would you agree that at some point somebody will use whatever crisis they are in their life to shake them enough to be able to pursue maybe a different
Yeah,
path?
a crisis, absolutely. For some people, a crisis can absolutely shake you, and it can change you. There's no question about it. But that doesn't come from a pick me up. The crisis itself will do that. That doesn't come from crisis plus prescription. No, there's only crisis. If the crisis is going to do something, it's going to be crisis equals change. It's not going to be crisis plus prescription equals change.
I agree. But at some point, do you think that, when somebody's dealing, and I've got some people who were very good friends who've lost very significant businesses. It's very difficult not to assume that they're shaken, that their confidence are shaken, that their mind's playing mind games with themselves. And at some point, they have to pick themselves up. It's their own responsibility.
All of that is true. Why wouldn't? Of course, they would be shaken. Anyone would. But that's a statement of fact. But what becomes non-fact is when you say, "What can you say to help them?" That's a farce. That's when everything That's when everything falls apart.
So let's not talk about helping them. Let's talk about the last time maybe you faced a crisis. Was there a turning point that enabled you to cross over to the other side and just become a different version of
I
yourself?
I don't think it's about turning points. I don't think it's about these supernova type of you know events that happen and then things change. That's a media myth that everyone likes to ask. At what point in your life did you? That's all just for cameras. It's not true. Nothing ever happens in one point. Um, it it the how crisis really can make a huge impact on someone's life is when they examine the crisis, when the crisis makes them look inward, as opposed to when the crisis makes them try to do something to feel better or to get out of the crisis. So when someone and everyone is having crisis after crisis after crisis, and the more that one becomes acutely aware of the fact that he is having one crisis after another, that is the person whom it will have a the possibility of a more lasting impact on, as opposed to the person who says, "This is my latest crisis. How can I get out of it?"
So it's an internal examination.
Yeah, but it's not a do no, but it's not a doing. I don't want no. It's not about internal exam. Everything that you say drips with the blood of doing. Right? It's an internal. So now go internally examine. I mean, it's no. I'm saying the person who does is the person who has the possibility of achieving a lasting benefit from a crisis. The person who does, not the person who was told to do, not the person who was suggested that they should do. The person who already does, not because they were told to, but because something in them just did.
But don't you think that at some point, if somebody's listening to something or reading something that you did, and that ignites that flame in them?
If it ignites the flame, that's only because they were at a
Ready.
certain degree of internal evolution to where it ignites. You are correct. There are things that can get someone over the hill and over the hump. That is correct. That does absolutely does happen. But that never comes. But that'll come through the hearing of the words, not through the hearing of any advice.
Yeah, well, let's assume we're not giving anybody advice. We're having a conversation, right?
But all of your questions are
listen,
centered
I can't
around
help it,
advice.
right?
But
I
no,
can't
I don't.
help it.
No, and I don't want you to help it. I just have to answer with silence then because I'm not interested.
No, well, I appreciate that, right? I really do appreciate it, and the reason that I can't help it is because I immediately start to picture people who are dealing with shit, and if there's anything we could do to at least offer some insight, forget advice, it would help. So, okay, let me ask you something about the questions that you're asking yourself when you're getting closer to that sense of freedom or the truth. Well, give me an example of some of the questions that you're asking yourself.
Let's talk the truth. Okay. Let's talk the truth. Okay. The vast majority, 99.8%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So now
Maybe,
it's
yeah,
point two.
maybe it's 99.9. Doesn't matter. Of the people listening and of the people, all the people in the world are going to die never having arrived at truth, are going to die never having arrived at wholeness or realization or whatever the word is, and whatever the word is in their own words, whatever that thing is. And they may call it happiness, they may call it peace, whatever the word is. Everyone, virtually everyone, is going to die not having got that thing in any consistent or
Sure.
sustainable fashion. Okay. So if that is the case, then it really is only about speaking the truth and not trying to help. Because if you try to help, you are sprinkling it upon the unhelpable. And that's why these advice and what do you recommend and how can we help so and so, it's just not true. It's not true. And if it isn't true, well, then why waste time doing it? Right? So I would say that the most impactful thing about this podcast, for instance, would not be about the people. It would be about you.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you need help, not that you should change, not nothing. Okay.
That's why
If
I'm doing it.
no, you're not, because every single question is about the people. That's just not true. That's just not true. And I'm not saying that you should. I'm just saying that is not a, to say that's why you're doing it. The your behavior speaks otherwise.
Yeah, I'm trying to speak for myself, but at the same time, not think of others.
Yeah, there is no thinking of others. That sounds very nice, but it's not. And no one thinks of others. So that thinking of others is just more advice sprinkling. Everyone's interested in themselves. That's the way everyone's wired. There is no such thing as selfish or unselfish. Everyone is wired to view and to seek and to biologically crave their own sense of well-being.
So when you're recording your solo podcasts, are you
You
talking to
mean the
yourself?
latest ones,
The latest ones. Are you
the
talking
direct
to
to podcast?
yourself? Yeah. Or what is there's some wonderful topics there.
Yeah,
Are you
yeah.
having conversations with yourself and just sharing it with
No,
others?
what I'm doing, I'm not really sharing. I'm I enjoy taking a topic and then um, basically getting a dart and throwing it directly into the heart of that topic. I enjoy that discovery. I enjoy that. No fluff, no intro music, right? No nonsense. In fact, at some point, those direct truth podcasts probably will be 30 seconds long because there won't be a single wasted letter because there's no time to waste. Um, just what it says, direct truth, no fluff, no time waste, no intro, no talk about obvious nonsense that everyone already knows. Get to the point, in and out. This is what it is. Not that you should do it, not that you shouldn't do it. Couldn't care less. If you change, doesn't bother me one bit. If you don't change, doesn't bother me one bit. But I like the communion. I enjoy the communion between the topic and the absolute raw, direct truth of that topic.
So ignoring anyone who might be listening, and theoretically, you're just basically having a conversation with yourself. And if somebody likes it or listens, great. If they don't, they don't.
I don't know who I'm having a conversation with. All I'm saying is that I just enjoy the throwing of that arrow into the heart of that topic.
And do you do any preparation?
No.
So you show up in the top and then you just go.
Yeah, it isn't so much that I go, it comes.
So can you give me a glimpse of what somebody could expect and I've got several of them here that I've put up in front of me. The first understanding to become world class. That topic just emerges in your head and you hit record and you just
Absolutely. Go. It's all there. It's all there. I'm not reciting it. It's just coming from somewhere else through me.
So what does that first understanding look like for somebody who wants to be world class?
I don't even remember what I said.
I know that. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't answer that question. I wouldn't. I don't even know what I said. Everything. I think that if someone is truly serious, they'll get away from the hows and the how-tos, and they'll naturally be more inclined and more attracted to finding out what it is that they truly want first.
Well, let me ask you about something that a lot of people are dealing with, but I think more importantly that I'm interested and curious in how I know that your preferred method of work is isolation and how you write and when you do these podcasts, when you do these interviews. But if you have to work with a team, how do you handle yourself?
Yeah, you're making me cringe. What do you mean by you have to work with a team?
Let's assume you get this amazing opportunity to work with a world-class team of athletes that are 5 of them in a room, right? And they're in a quest to win some amazing championship, and they'd like to have you kind of observe what they do and maybe see what they can't see.
I don't think that you can look at a group of people. Like, there's not 5. If you have 5 people on the Chicago Bulls, there's not 5 Michael Jordans.
There was only one.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So there's no way that I would talk to the other 4 the same way I talk to him. That's why there's no team. I mean, they're technically is a team in the most mechanical sense, but it is the allegiance to each person's own role and that individuality of that role, which then by inference allows the quote team to work.
And I think everybody sees that. But if you were their coach,
I don't think so. I don't think everybody sees that. I don't think so.
Well, I mean,
not for a second.
So you don't think that at least this docuseries has revealed that he was at a different stratosphere than everybody else?
No, but that's not what I said. I'm talking about viewing the idea of team through individuality as opposed to through team.
But if you're their coach, how do you handle that?
What's there to handle? You have to be specific. Like, you can't just say, how do you handle what? Like, it isn't, you don't just open the door and say, what do I do?
How do you handle a team meeting? Like, let's say you guys had a shitty night before and you're talking about what happened.
But that's more specific. Like, there's no handling of anything. So if there was if there was a lack of performance, then it would come down to, first of all, um, the lack of performance really doesn't have anything to do with the players. Asking them. It is the coach who's insightful and incisive. He will see the issues himself. He will need their input only on a very specific basis. And this team meeting stuff, this board meeting stuff.
I know that.
It's just not. It's. I don't think you say that you know those, but you don't, because you ask those very questions that you say you know about.
Because you can't escape it. That's the way the world is wired.
No, if I was the head of the Bulls, I may have a team meeting, I may not. I don't know, but there's no way that I would walk in there with the idea that that's just the way the world. I couldn't give a crap about the world. If I was told that you have to, by the GM, that you have to have a team meeting, I wouldn't. I would leave. Like, I don't. It depends upon what you cannot force things upon creativity, upon art. Right? So what that's the way it's done? In fact, if it's the way it's done, that's totally wrong. Just by virtue of the fact it's done that way. Everything is wrong the way it's done. So if anything, you do the complete opposite first, without even looking into it. First, do opposite. So the way that you think is the way that everybody thinks. You're just supposed to have a team meeting. Why? Just because you're supposed to. Why? Because you're supposed to. Why? Because you're supposed to. I don't walk in with any supposed tos.
I know you do.
You know, I might make them hang upside down from the ceiling. I don't know what I would do. But I don't have any preconceived things, because I don't do things in conventional ways. I believe in extracting art from the human. And in order to extract art from a human, you cannot approach him in traditional ways, because the mind will eat tradition up. So nothing would be traditional. We might so-called practice in a river. I don't know. Whatever it requires, the situation would dictate to me, and whatever arose within me organically, that's what would happen. When I go see a pro athlete, and this happens on a regular basis.
I know it does.
I have no idea what I'm going to say. I have no briefcase. I have no PowerPoint. I have no clue. I won't know if I go on a stage, or if I do a podcast, or if I talk. I have no idea ever what I'm going to say. But I never go in with this idea that team meeting is a must. Why? Because it's supposed to. So I reject the entire notion. Like, out of the gate, I can't even answer the question, because the assumptions upon which it is based, I don't consider as valid. I think that most team meetings, I think that businesses waste billions on these stupid board meetings. They're just a waste of time. Now, I know what you're going to ask, because everyone's going to ask the same thing. But it's not going to do you any good to hear anything, because you're still locked into, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. And since we have to have a board meeting, then you'll ask, well, if you don't have a board meeting, then how can you ever get anything done? Well, my point is, if you have a board meeting, how can you ever get anything done? No one gets anything done. The inefficiencies, the time waste is so catastrophic that the only reason that people aren't jumping off of buildings because of it is because they're all in the same boat. Everyone does it. So it is a group psychosis.
Well, there's some people. Some people are jumping off buildings, but we don't.
Well, not enough.
No one sees that.
Not enough.
So I want to get at, how do you handle repeated poor performance issues with an athlete?
By finding the cause.
And are you sitting there asking questions, or are you observing?
Or
both?
Usually, if I observe, I can usually tell.
Even if it's a sport that you don't routinely
Oh,
pay
it doesn't
attention
have nothing. That's commonly.
Hence the swimming coach,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, nothing. Yeah, I don't. The technicality of the sport is irrelevant. It's totally irrelevant. It's very easy to see. It's not difficult to see what's going on, at least to get to a fairly specific area. And then from there, when you need input from the individual, then you really painstakingly go into his mind and you ask questions that turn his mind inside out. And he begins to, almost in a trance-like state, give to you the truth about what's really going on. And as he gives it to you, he hears it himself. Now, what are you going to do with that, right? What are you going to put that on the bulletin board? That isn't how people think. So most of these things that I say are like way out there because they're so wildly divorced from convention. They're not even the same zip code. And that's why when you ask me conventional questions and you ask them in order to provide help to people, it is not going to help them because both the assumptions that the questions are based upon are flawed, and the thing that I'm going to say is not going to be in their experience. So the only person who can learn the truth is the one who has no preconceived notions. He doesn't walk in saying, since I know there has to be a team meeting, okay, that's a given. That's I'm not getting rid of that. Now, holding that firmly in place, tell me what you would say in a team meeting. I would say no. Well, there's no team meeting. Forget the assumptions. I'm not saying I wouldn't have a team meeting. I'm not saying I would have a team meeting. What I am rejecting is the assumptions that you have to.
Yeah, and hey, man, I totally get it. I mean, the overwhelming majority of them not only are a waste of time, but a waste of energy.
Well, if that was true, then why do you have group meetings?
I don't have them as often as you think, but yeah, you're
Okay,
right.
so
You're right.
you don't, right?
Yeah,
So,
you're exactly
no.
right.
But here's what I'm trying to get across. You're not wrong for doing so. I am saying that I am putting your words back on you, right? So if you say that most of them are a waste of time, and yet you still have them, that doesn't mean that you're a hypocrite. Not at all. It's not about the doing. It's not about the action. It is that if you really believed that they were a waste of time, then you wouldn't be having them. So the point is not that you're wrong for doing it or that you are not following your own advice, all that nonsense. It is the very fact that you do means that you believe that they're worthy.
At times, yeah. And as I'm hearing you talk, I'm thinking, perhaps it's a talent issue. Perhaps that, I don't have the world class team that's able to be self sustaining and to be, to pursue their own greatness.
Well,
That's
yeah,
something
I
that.
mean, I don't think there's no world class team. First of all, there's world class people. There's no world class team. Um, the,
Good point.
so, but it is that the individual has to be, not has to be, if the individual is completely outside the box and does things in a completely unconventional way, then he has to be before those who are also given to unconventional things, right? And so the the relationship between the two parties, so to speak, has to be on the same page DNA wise, right? So if the so-called team is wholly conventional, and then you come in with total unconventionalness, then you have one of two choices: either you cower, or you do things the way you want to do, in which case you probably leave. So, so yeah, that marriage has to be there, right, in one way or the other.
If your boys weren't your boys and their parents came to you and said, "Hey, we've got two kids who we feel have the opportunity to do amazing things in golf, and we'd like for you to coach them," would you?
Well, the honest answer is I don't know. But what I will say is that there is, in many ways, um, it is it is to some degree it is unfortunate that they have me for a father.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You're always going to be speaking in their ear.
Well, I think distance I think distance and unfamiliarity is has a definite place. And so if you happen to have come or some discoveries have found you, let's say, some truths have found you that that you've become privy to, then it's actually helpful to have more distance than to have more familiarity, because uh, the flow of that information is more effective.
So if they weren't family and you saw this, the next version of Tiger Woods and their parents, you were close to their parents and they wanted you to, in whatever capacity, to coach them, would something like that appeal to you?
Probably not. Number one, they're kids. I don't really coach kids. Number two, the things that the places that I go, one has to be ready to go, and very few are willing to go there. And if I have a parent to deal with, then I'm going to have to explain some things, and I don't want to explain. First of all, they won't get it, and I don't want to have any middlemen. I don't deal with middlemen, right? Um, so the best people, and they're very, very rare, the individuals who truly, for whatever reason, are interested in learning, and not just intellectually, but they either because they've reached a certain point in their life by way of age, or they've reached a certain point in their life by way of circumstance where they have everything but then don't have anything, so to speak. Um, or they're just their DNA, it leads them in that direction to really want to know before they die, to not have to not waste a life, to use every opportunity of whatever life you have left, to not waste the remainder of it, is something that for some people really grabs them by the throat, and for which they're willing to do anything for that not to happen, because they really value that I only have X number of years left, and I really want my life to have gone somewhere. I really want to have experienced, I really want to have arrived somewhere in my life so that it wasn't a total struggle the entire way with nothing to show for it.
So you don't think an 18 or a 20-year-old's ready for that mindset?
It depends upon the 18 or 20-year-old, but it's very rare. Um, it's very rare, and particularly in today's environment. I mean, we've talked about this before. Today's, alcohol guzzling environment of just a very degraded human existence. The worst. I think the worst conditions that any generation has ever seen. The level of degradation. It's you got to be a pretty rare person to overcome that.
Yeah.
That sort of influence.
So do you ever think about success?
Not really. It's a pretty open question.
Like, how about wealth or money? Is that ever, you don't really do anything about that, right? You don't talk much about it. Does that mean anything to you?
I mean, what's the truth? The truth is that if you wish to live in society, you need money, and money provides definitely a lot of benefits, and allows you to do what you want to do. But aside from that one truth, money doesn't really inspire me.
It's never a
It
goal
doesn't.
for you.
No, I mean it is money is there. Like it's a ghost in the corner, right? That everyone needs some. right? To live in the world. But just from that basic necessity standpoint, like there's nothing that I do that I'm driven by money to do. Absolutely not. I mean that in fact I'm driven by, if someone wants, to read what I have or to whatever it is, that that they should have skin in the game. That means, yeah, that means something to me. Absolutely. Don't come to me asking stuff for free. Um, but from the standpoint of, me cashing a check, I I can't think of anything more uninspiring to me. It just doesn't do it for me. I'm not saying that's good or bad, right? The person who's driven by money, that's not bad. I'm just saying that's just not it just isn't there.
Well, I think it's pretty clear, and just for people who at least follow you and have gotten to know you through your writing and so forth. And when somebody does write a check to whether it's to hear the podcast or whether to be a part of your private discourses, I think what that means more than anything for you is that at least you have somebody who's at least a little bit more serious than everybody else.
Sure. Yes, that's right.
A couple things that I read that I want you to comment on. Every person in your life is hindering you in ways that you will never know.
Absolutely. That's absolutely true. In every way. In every way. You'll.
Do you trust
And
anybody?
I guess do I trust? It depends. What do you mean by trust?
Trust the integrity of some people around you? I mean, if everybody's hindering you, last time we talked a little bit about it from the standpoint of attachment, right?
Well,
I get it.
everyone is hindering you, not because they're trying to physically block you. They're hindering you because they're not of the DNA that's going to accelerate you. That's how they're hindering you, not by what they do, but by who they are.
So do you just not have any friends unless they fall into that 0.001%?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Or do you mean you, like, in general, or are you asking me?
Well, I'm asking you.
No, I don't have any friends.
Well, they're in the 0.001%, right?
Yeah,
Relationships.
I'm a total loner hermit. I mean, the only difference is that I literally I don't live in a cave.
But you work with people.
But I do live in a cave figuratively.
Right, but you work with people. People come to you.
I
for
do,
certain
but very
things.
little. I do, but I think eventually that's going to go away too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot of interest in talking to people. Um, I it For me it's very much like my time is so taken by the devotion to ultimate truth and everything. It's not a good thing. Like, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I really mean that. It's not a good thing. It wasn't my choice. But everything goes so deeply into that. I don't really have an interest in anything else.
If I were to ask the boys how would they describe their dad, how do you think they'd respond?
I think it's a very good question, and I don't think that I'm fit to answer that question. I don't know. You don't really know what people would say. You don't know. You only know how you think in your own totally completely biased way, right? As a human being. You never really know what got across, what did not get across, what impression was created, and not that it matters.
Right, but
Because
Kapil, the truth of the
yeah,
matter is you're a huge part of their life.
yeah, but I can't. I'm not going down that road because these are like Good Housekeeping type articles. It just doesn't go anywhere. Every parent does for their kids. Okay, every parent provides for their children. Every parent wants the best for their children. There's no specialness here. It's just a biological drive. I mean, so there's nothing special that I did. I mean, it's very easy to sort of fall into that idea of what a parent has done for the children, no matter how much time and so forth, and how much of their life they've devoted, and even if they devote their entire life. But that was all done because the parent wanted to, right? It's not a, it can't be viewed through the lens of good and bad, and altruism versus selfishness. Um, so I don't. Yeah, this is one of those topics. Once again, that it's considered sacred, but nothing is sacred. I mean, because it's sacred means that you put a wall around it and you don't really examine the real truth of it, no matter how much it may be. It may make you feel uncomfortable. But this idea that the parent is a huge part of the child's life, I think that's much more the case when they're small. Um, but I don't. I think the person who asks that question perhaps hasn't really seen life for what it is, Mo. I don't. I don't. I don't think people see. I think people really have rose-colored glasses on. Life is not what you think. Your life, and not just you. I mean, just a human being's life. It's not. It's not this 1 + 1 = 2. And I know you're going to agree with that, but don't agree so quickly. Like it's not this like you do all this good stuff and then they do all good for you, and because you did good, you get. It's not like that. Life is like this jagged edge that is the T's don't get crossed necessarily, and the I's don't get dotted, and you can give everything and get nothing. So people don't like to look at it that way because they like closure, and they like to write textbooks in which the bold type says that, X leads to Y. That just isn't reality.
Kapil, are there certain skills that you think best serves you in life?
What do you mean?
Just so there's certain skills, like when you think about, the skills that we acquire, and I look at your kids and I look at my kids at their stage in life, and you think about the skills that they need to have to best serve them in the future. Do you ever think about that? Do you feel like there's certain skills that are going to equip them to have a better future than others?
Well, the question started off really nicely, but then it became a teaching again.
Pretend you
Then you
didn't hear the
because
last
then
part.
you
Then
then you use the word equip, right?
pretend you didn't
Uh,
hear that. We'll
okay,
edit that one
so
out.
so the no, don't edit it out because it's important for everyone to hear that. Um, yeah, absolutely, there is a skill, and but that skill isn't really a physical skill; it's an understanding, and that is that all your friends are stupid, and that you really don't have any friends, and that all those who call you their friend are not, and that all those that you associate with are acquaintances, and any reliance upon anyone is only going to lead you to absolute pain. I don't care how much of an optimist you are and how much of your life you spend in the self-help section or positive thinking. That's just camouflage. That's just damage control. Uh, but even having said all that, it won't do anything for anybody, because even if someone canceled all their friends after hearing that, it wouldn't do anything because they'd be doing it prescriptively. Secondly, no one's ever going to do that. Thirdly, it is only the person who has had that experience to whom it could actually reach.
It reached me.
Okay. Yeah, that's just the absolute truth. This idea of friendship and, associations, and I go to meet so and so and talk to so and so. Every one of those people will disappoint you on a regular basis throughout your entire life. And when you meet a new friend, he's going to be the exact same way. And what must be understood, and I'm not saying this to be nice, God forbid, what must be understood is that um, it is not their fault. It is no one's fault. No one is trying to disappoint you. It is just that you have to view the human creature as the human creature. If you see a human creature as someone who is under the category of friend, then you will ascribe to him characteristics for which he is not capable. Therefore, that can only result in disappointment. So if it's anyone's fault, it's the person's for ascribing that upon someone. Now, it isn't even his fault. It's not a fault. It's just a lack of understanding.
Well, I mean,
So,
a lot of times,
if a young person understands that, let's say by some, cosmic flash,
that
right?
the 0.0021%.
No, 0%.
Okay.
0%. Okay. Of the people that they call friend, of the people that they lean upon, that they depend upon, that they hope to have a good time with and waste their lives, they are dragging them down. They will lead only to disappointment. Net result. If that was like by way of syringe, being able to be implanted in someone, there's your so-called skill. You have no idea of the plutonium bomb magnitude of that skill.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that disappointment a lot of times leads to anger. That anger, leads to bad shit.
Yeah, it's all
Right.
it's all in the same umbrella. Yeah, all that pain, strife, anxiety, and then that leads to conflict, and then absolutely, yeah, that whole thing. Being around other people is an incredible liability. And no one should listen to that. It's not going to help you to listen to that. I'm just speaking the way things are.
But what it could do is help somebody start to examine their own life.
Sure,
Right?
it
I
could.
bet you
It
leave
could.
it like that.
Yeah, it could, absolutely. The one who's had that experience especially. So he doesn't have to take it on faith.
Yeah, I've had it. Yeah, it's not faith, right? It's truth.
Right, right.
It is.
Right. It's just that everyone has experienced it. It's just that they believe, well, around the corner, those were just bad apples.
Bad apples,
right?
exactly.
And around the corner is the one.
Yep.
Right. And what they fail to see is that they see humans as being different, and they're not. Humans are all the same. They're incredibly flawed, and once again, that's why it's very difficult to listen to these things unless you're looking through the lens of truth. Because if you look through good and bad, you're just an outraged individual. You'll never get anywhere. I'm not saying anything bad about anyone. It's not bad. It's just the way it is. Dirt is dirty. That's not bad.
Look, let me just ask a couple more things and we'll wrap this one up. You talk a lot about arrival, right? We ditched the journey a long time ago, 2 years ago when we started this thing. You talk a lot about arrival. So knowing that, how do you think about the future? Is part of that arrival? Do you think about the next 2, 3, 4, 10 years of your life in that manner? Or every day is you're just in the present?
Well, that in the present is really prescriptive. No, I don't view arrival as this chronological thing. It's a qualitative
Feeling.
arrival now at something. Yeah, like the impatience. Yeah, it isn't. If I do this for X number of years, yeah, that's empty.
So you don't think about the future. You don't ever.
No.
That's not-
The future really is death. That's the future. That's everyone's future. There's no Nostradamus right there, right? That's your future. So the only future that you're talking about like future for X number of years, which really isn't that. Yeah, that's future compared to now, but that isn't your future, right? People talk about future as if it's like their permanent future, right? The permanent future is death. That's where everyone's headed.
Yeah, but there's a lot of avoidance in even having that conversation. Very few people. There you go again with the 0.1%. How many people do you have a conversation with and want to talk about death? It's the ultimate reality.
Well, you can't talk to anyone about anything. Human beings are not people that you talk to. They're not ready to talk about anything except for, you know, what they did last night, right? Or how good that restaurant is, or how this stupid wine tastes. I mean, it's not even worth oxygen.
That's nonsense, right?
I mean, the bulk of humanity is filler. It's an insult to waste humanity upon them. I mean, just think about it. You go to these social events, you talk nonsense to nonsense people, you drink alcoholic substances to numb your mind till you can't even see straight, you slur your speech. Then you go to some stupid job and talk about gossip over the water cooler, right? Then you go and talk about, well, you made this and this investment and someone else made this. It's beneath insect behavior. That is not that to say that a human being is the most evolved creature. Yeah, perhaps by way of potential, but not by way of reality. Just look all over social media, right? Look in the newspapers. Look at everything. Human beings are not evolved creatures. The the creation the creation that created them is evolved, but not them. Everyone's just an idiot.
Living in
It's
their
just
own skin, right?
with the potential to become grand, but complete sellouts to that which created them. Just a slap in the face of nature. It's disgusting. You can't talk to anybody. They're either full of outraged or just yap their mouth as soon as you say anything. Don't even want to hear anything. They got these preconceived notions about everything. They wave party flags. These are not evolved creatures. A slug is more evolved. You laugh, but you
But I
laugh,
laugh because
but
you're telling me the truth. I get it, man. I get it. I really do get it, and that's why I appreciate you so much, because I don't ever have these types of conversations with anyone else. Is that why, as human beings, we're just always judging other people all the time? You know?
well, judging others is just one little detail in the anthood. Um, it a human doesn't really want to get anywhere. He just wants to accumulate. He just wants to self-adorn. A human doesn't really want truth. He doesn't want to arrive at the glory of what he was made to be. He wishes to um, slide in the filth and the froth that is his life, that is his mind. He spends his life in nightclubs and bars and social events.
And meetings,
In meetings and nature and schools and all these places. I mean,
conferences.
nature looks at that and it says, I wasted my resources on that.
Yeah, you wouldn't be caught dead speaking at a conference, right?
Well, I have no idea what I would do or not do. Um, but like, I would not say that I would do this and I wouldn't do that. But,
I'd have to kidnap you.
but, um, I don't really do anything for like people, right? I mean, so I might do anything that would seem out of character, but it would be done from an internal place because there was some exploration happening that was satisfying on the inside, not because I was trying to do something on the outside, in any kind of showmanship or to reach someone or anything like that, or anything ego based.
Yeah, have you met anyone in your life who's reached the level of truth that you are?
Well, I don't, you see, it's not about accomplishment, Mo. It's about the sincerity of the desire. So I would say that perhaps a more relevant And truthful question would be not have you met someone else who has reached that, but have you met someone else who wanted that to that level? That's the real question.
Have you?
No, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist. Um, but because when you say have you met someone who reached that, it implies that that can't be reached, and I think that's not a truthful message. And I'm sure I'm 100% certain there are people somewhere in the world who are way quote beyond whatever your hierarchy is, beyond what I've done. There's no reason to look at me in any kind of shining light or anything.
Would you like to work with somebody like Michael Jordan?
I've never met Michael.
It's not too far from you.
Yeah. Um, it really isn't about what I would like to work with someone.
If he wanted to.
You know what I mean? It really is about the communion. It really is about me being inspired by the the inspiration of the individual as to where he or she wants to go, or what their DNA is, or how deeply they really want to go into something, and how deeply they want to arrive, and how it's really being taken by that, as opposed to I would like to work with X. No, you don't have any. I don't. There's no one in the world that I would like to work with. No one.
And just real quick, because I said I'd wrap up 10 minutes ago, but if somebody came to you, how do you determine whether or not somebody came to you that has a level of sincerity, a level of seriousness, certainly maybe not up to that Jordan level or Tiger level? How do you determine whether or not you'll agree to work with somebody like that?
Well, you feel it. You'll feel it. I mean, you'll feel the inspiration. You'll feel the communion. You'll feel the connection of ideals, the connection of sincerities.
Well said. Thank you, sir.
Sure thing.